In the 12th century, Europe was ravaged by the plague, with villages decimated and corpses littering the streets. Historical records estimate that up to 30% of the population perished. This scene depicts a grim reality where faith was tested daily. The visual of hooded figures carrying bodies under a dark sky symbolizes humanity's struggle against an invisible foe. The plague forced medieval Christians to confront theodicy. Why does a good God permit suffering? Amidst the death, a Benedictine monk kneels in the abbey's scriptorium, scribbling prayers by candlelight. Medieval monks often served as community scribes and spiritual anchors during plagues. The flickering candle represents the fragile hope of divine intervention. Stained glass windows depicting biblical judgment scenes loom above him, a visual reminder of God's perceived silence. This moment captures the tension between institutional religion and personal doubt during crisis. The monk stumbles upon a Gnostic text in the abbey's restricted vaults. Gnosticism, declared heretical in 382 AD, proposed a distant, unknowable God, a radical contrast to Orthodox Christianity's personal deity. The cracked wax seal suggests this book was hidden for centuries. Its eerie illustrations of a veiled deity directly challenge the monk's understanding of divine providence, setting the stage for his spiritual crisis. Feverish from exhaustion, the monk hallucinates a towering, faceless figure wrapped in layers of celestial cloth, a visual representation of the Gnostic alien god. This imagery draws from the Apocryphon of John, where divinity is utterly transcendent. The figure turns away from outstretched human hands, embodying the perceived divine silence. The storm rattling the windows mirrors the monk's internal turmoil as centuries-old theological certainties crumble. The monk confronts the abbot before the abbey's cracked crucifix, a literal fracture in religious symbolism. Medieval church records show such crises were not uncommon during plagues. The abbot's rigid posture represents institutional orthodoxy, while the monk's gesticulations reflect Job-like anguish. Shadows stretch unnaturally long, visualizing Psalm 88's "Darkness is my closest friend." This scene embodies the historical tension between doubt and dogma. Exiled to the woods, the monk meets a hermit practicing apophatic theology, the tradition of knowing God through negation. The leafless trees symbolize spiritual winter, while the hermit's crude shrine uses natural materials, rejecting ornate church aesthetics. The hermit argues that divine silence is actually profound speech, citing Isaiah 45:15. "Truly, you are a God who has been hiding himself." This challenges the monk's expectations of audible divine responses. A starving plague survivor, likely an orphan, poses the question medieval theologians struggled with: why won't God help us? The child's rusted crucifix, a family heirloom now tarnished by grief, represents inherited faith under strain. This moment echoes Lamentations 2 verse 12. They say to their mothers, "Where is bread and wine?" as they faint like the wounded in the streets of the city. The fog obscuring the forest signifies mystery without answers. The monk establishes a makeshift hospital, embodying the parable of the Good Samaritan. Historical accounts show medieval monasteries often served as early hospitals during plagues. Blood-stained bandages recall Christ's wounds, while villagers' tears represent the liquid prayers described by St. Augustine. This practical compassion contrasts with earlier theological debates, a shift from questioning God's role to assuming it through human action. The abbot arrives at dawn, his silhouette softened by the rising sun, a visual metaphor for grace. His admission of doubt reflects the apophatic abbot tradition seen in some medieval texts, where clergy acknowledge the limits of human theology. The shared loaf references both the Eucharist and Christ's post-resurrection breakfast with Peter, John 21:9-12, suggesting reconciliation through humble service rather than doctrinal victory. The monk writes a new text blending orthodoxy and lived experience. God speaks through our hands. This reflects the medieval Bibles of the Poor tradition, visual scriptures for the illiterate. The closed Gnostic book symbolizes rejected escapism, while the fresh parchment represents adaptive faith. In the distance, rebuilt homes show resilience, a medieval parallel to Isaiah 58:12's repairer of broken walls.